Alright, hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial. We're in Unreal Engine 4, and again, we're working with our player inventory system for a point-and-click game. What we left off with, I'll have a link to that video here, but what we left off with, if we play, is just the ability to pick up items again, have them show in the inventory system, and then allow us to click on it, and then being able to drag it out and hold down left mouse button, and then when you let go it disappears, but nothing's removed from the inventory, and we don't have the ability to just swap positions or anything like that. So that's what we're going to be working on and continue to be working on here in just a moment. So the first thing we want to go ahead and do, because what I had mentioned before, we want to make sure we reset our dragging variables. So if you remember the slot 1 drag, the slot 2 drag variables, these booleans right here, we want to make sure we reset those properly. So the way we're going to go about doing that is we're going to need to create a new macro, because those are always fun to make. So let's do a new macro. Let's call it reset inventory slot dragging variables. I'm very creative with these, of course. So what we need to do in here is basically just turn all these variables back to false. Of course, we need the input and output executables here. In and then out. And then we need to grab our HUD reference because we're doing this all in the character. So let's grab our HUD reference. And we need to do slot 1 drag set. Plug that in. And we're going to do this for all 5 of them. So copy and paste. Let's set slot 2 drag. Copy paste. Let's just delete that. Do slot 3 drag set. And we just got to do the same for the 4th and 5th slot. And then last but not least, the 5th one. So set slot 5 drag. Oops. There we go. And then we can just plug that into the out. Or not. Hold on. Here we go. And that's all it really takes. So make sure they're all false. And then we can go back into our event graph and just throw that macro into behind here for after the inventory mouse click. And that's all we have to do for that. So the next thing we're going to do, because in this video we're going to have to break things up again. We're going to have to do the check for inventory slot swapping. This is going to be a large section, but I'm curious to see if we see the correction that I wanted to see by doing the reset of those variables. Yeah, we are. So before, where you see we can click and drag the backpack, whereas before, you know, if we did it again, we would get the backpack again, but now we're getting the top hat because we're resetting those variables. So we can pick all these up now and kind of prove what we did in the last video, where we can pick up the key, then we can pick up the book, then we can pick up the jump rope, pick up the top hat, and then pick up the backpack. All individually of each other, so that's good to see. So let's go back into our character. And we're going to have to create another macro. So let's just go ahead and do that right now. And we're going to call it check for inventory slot swapping. I do see I made a spelling error on this other one. So for the check for inventory swapping, we're only going to need the in and out of the input and output. So let's create those 2 executable pins here and name them in and out respectively. Let's get the outputs out of the way for right now. And what we're going to need to do first is create a sequence, just so we can split up the initial flow of our blueprint here, or the macro, I should say. And from here, this is where we're going to need to create two new variables that could be floats. We're going to name this first float mouse released position X. Compile that. And then make another one for Y. So mouse release position Y. If I can spell. So we got those two. And again, we're going to need to get the player controller, because we need to get the mouse position pretty much here. So drag out get mouse position. Then we're going to first do a set of the mouse release position X with the location X of the mouse. The same thing goes for the Y. And now we need to do a series of branches where we're checking to see if any of those slot 1 or slot 2 or slot 3, 4, or 5 drag variables that we made earlier are true or false. So we need to get slot 1 drag, do a branch, plug that up from there. Oops, gotta make sure they attach. And if that's false, we're going to check the slot 2. So I'll do get slot 2 drag. Do another branch. I'm going to do this for all 5 here. Slot 3. Then another branch. Plug that up. Do slot 4. Oops. And then another branch. And then we've got to do slot 5. And I do realize this is getting a little overwhelming just because there's a lot of variables on what we're doing, but hopefully you guys can keep up here. And then that's the last branch. And then, so if slot 5 is also false, we'll shoot out the output right there. And now what we need to do is create some more macros, because we're awesome. So this next macro, it's going to be almost identical for each one. There's going to be some changes, but we basically need to check what we're swapping and where we're swapping it to. So we're going to create that macro now. We're going to call it inventory slot 1 swapping. And we need just the basic input output executable pins here. And what we first need to check is the release position of our mouse at the time that we release it, because if it's not even with in the menu bar, we don't have to really worry about swapping. So let's get that information here. I believe it's in our drag and drop logic, where we have the 630 to 725, these values. We're going to make sure we remember those values. So let's get the mouse position Y variable. So mouse release position Y. We want to check if that's greater than or equal to, and we're going to do 630. Then from there, create a branch. Let's get the output out of the way for now. And we're going to connect this branch to the input. And if this is true, we got to check the mouse release position for that 725. So we got to do less than or equal to, and then 725. then another branch. Oops. So this goes to the true. And now what we need to do is get the number of inventory items. So we gotta get a inventory reference variable here and do get number of inventory items. We want to just check if that's greater than or equal to 1. And we're going to do that because we're checking for inventory slot 1. So if it doesn't even have 1 inventory in the system at all, then we don't even need to worry about it. So connect the true into this branch. And now things are going to get crazy. So just as a heads up on that. What we're going to need to do is create a sequence, again, to control our blueprint flow. And we need 5 pins on it, so add pin. So we have 0 through 4. We're going to connect the true into this sequence. And then it's from here, we're checking to see where the mouse release position is for the X. And we're going to, accordingly, we're going to make sure that variables are changed, and then making sure that we can swap the names of, or not, both the names and the actual picture and the actual object in the inventory system. So we're going to be swapping those around. So when we're dealing with the slot position 1, we want to make sure we remember those numbers, the 30 and the 104 for the actual X position of the picture. So we need to grab the mouse release position X. And we need to know if it's greater than or equal to 30. Then we're going to do a branch. And if it is, we need to do another check for mouse position, mouse release position X. We got to know if that's less than or equal to 104. And then we're going to do a branch. So this is going to connect from true. And the first executable pin from our sequence is going to go into this branch. Oops. And then from here, we're going to make the slot 1 drag variable from the HUD reference. We're going to make that false. Just because we're releasing the mouse we're releasing the mouse on the slot 1 position while we're trying to swap slot 1. So nothing should happen because you're basically replacing the item with the item you already have. So if the backpack is in slot 1 and you let go over slot 1, it's going to stay backpack. It's not going to change what it's doing. And then from there, we can plug this into the output. So let's grab the output. I'm just going to drag out this output a little bit because I know this is going to be a big sequence. So now we need to do a check to see if we have 2 inventory items. So we're going to have to copy this number of inventory items portion here as well as the branch. Going to change the 1 to a 2. We're going to plug the next sequence into that. And now we got to check the position to see if we're swapping over slot 1 to slot 2. So we have to get those values for the slot 2 X position. So we're going to copy and paste these 2 variables here. Plug that up with the true. And now we just got to change these values. So we're going to change the 30 to a 152 and the 104 to a 225. And if these are all true, what we need to do is basically switch the values of those 2 variables. So we're basically switching slot 1 with slot 2 and slot 2 to slot 1. So it's going to need to take a couple of variables here from our HUD. So let's grab the HUD reference. And if you remember, we made those temporary values too for the names. So we have like slot 1 item name and then slot 1 item name temporary. This is why. So now let's set this up. We're going to grab this, do set slot 1 item name. Whoops, I did 2. Set slot 1 item name. And what we're going to set that to is the slot 2 item name temp. So we're basically saying, okay, we have currently the item from slot 1, we're holding it, and then when we release our mouse, it looks like we're at the position of slot 2. So what we're doing here is taking the slot 2 item name temporary name that's in there, if there is something in slot 2, and then we're switching it over to slot 1, and then we kind of have to do the same thing for slot 2. So let's grab the HUD reference, do set slot 2 item name, and we need to set it to the slot 1 item name temp. So hook that up. And now we basically need to take, now that we swap those, we now need to make whatever's in slot 1 the name for the new temporary name. So that if we do it again, everything updates correctly and appropriately. So let's grab the HUD reference. We're going to do slot 1 item name as a get. And then we're basically going to do a set slot 1 item name temp. And we're going to just connect those together. And then we're going to do the same thing for the slot 2 item name temp. So let's get the set for slot 2 item name temp. Now we need to grab the HUD reference. We need to, whoops, that's not the HUD reference. Let's get the HUD reference. Pull out slot 2 name. And there we go. Now this can go into the output. So essentially, again, what we're doing is we're holding slot 1. So that's dragged out, and we see the icon following the mouse. And then when we let go, if we see we're on the position in the X for the slot 2 slot, we basically switch them around. Basically change the names of the variables, and it'll change what is being drawn. So we basically have to do this for each instance of the 5 slots. So this is where things get a little redundant, but hey, it's not too difficult. So we're going to need all this again. We're going to change the number of inventory item check to 3 from 2. We're going to plug it into the next pin from the sequence. And now we need to update the X position. So we're going to do 247 and then 324. And now it's kind of the same idea, except now we got to switch slot 1 with slot 3. So these variables are not going to be exactly the same, but the idea is the same behind them. So let's grab the HUD reference. We're going to set slot 1. And we're going to set that with the slot 3 item name temp. We're going to plug that into the true here from this new branch. And then we're going to grab another HUD reference. We're going to do set slot 3 item name. And we're going to set that with the slot 1 item name temp. We're going to connect these two. And now we basically need to reassign the item names to the new item names to the item name temps again. So we're going to set item name, slot 1 item name temp. We're going to set that to the HUD reference to slot 1 item name. There we go. Now we need to do the same thing for slot 3. So set slot 3. Now we need to get the HUD reference, get slot 3 item name. plug that up. And then from here, this can go into the output. Now, we gotta do this again, copy and paste the first portion of this, because we gotta do this for the 4th slot. So plug the sequence into the new branch here. We're gonna change this 3 to a 4. And then we need to update the exposition we're looking for. So this one's gonna be 353, and then 424. And now we got to do the swap position for the item between slot item 1 and slot item 4. So let's get the HUD reference. We're going to do slot 1 item name. We're going to set that. And now we need to get the slot 4 item name temp. Just organize this. Make everything nice and tight here. And then we got to do the same thing for slot 4. So let's grab a HUD reference, set slot 4. And then we need to get the slot 1 item name temp. Oops. Oops, nope. There we go. And I like to make this nice and concise. Hopefully it's readable. Let's also save just to play it safe. And now we gotta do the part where we assign the new slot item name to the temporary name. So let's set slot 1 name temp. We're gonna set that to slot 4 item name. So get slot 4 item name. The same thing goes for slot 4 item name temp. So let's get the HUD reference. Slot 1 item name. Oops, I did that backwards. So instead of assigning the slot 4 item name to the temp of slot 1, we're going to have to move that over to slot 4. And then vice versa. There we go. Plug that up. And then this goes into the output. And let's move things around just a little bit. Let's get everything a little more organized. Then we have to copy and paste this section one last time. Change this from 4 to 5. And then update the exposition comparisons that we're doing here. We're going to make this 450, and then 524. And then we got to do the same idea again, but for slot 5. So let's get the HUD reference. Whoops. Set slot 1 item name. We're going to assign that to the slot 5 name temp. Plug that up. And then grab another HUD reference. Do set slot 5. We're going to set that with item 1 name temp. Plug that up. Now we're going to set slot 1 item name temp to the HUD reference of slot 1 item name. Plug that up. And the same thing goes for the slot 5 temp. We're going to set that HUD reference and do slot 5. Plug that up, and then this goes into the output. And there we go. So we're going to have to duplicate that and change a little bit for each slot, but we should be able to swap slot 1 with any kind of any other slots here. So, but we can't do vice versa. So we have the backpack. Okay, that's not working. I don't think we added that macro yet, so I'm dumb. So inventory slot 1 swapping, we're going to have to plug this into where we made the check for inventory slot swapping. We're going to have to plug that into the true of where we have the comparison of the slot 1 drag. Now it should work. Let's test that out. Before we do, let's just connect this guy to the output. And we need to do one last thing here. Let's drag this out. When we release the mouse, that's when we want to go ahead and start calling the check for inventory slots, I believe. Let me double check. Yep. So we have to do check for inventory slot swapping. We're going to drag this guy out, put him in here, and then connect him back up. Now we should be able to see some results. So let's compile and save, and let's play within the editor here. Let's grab all these items so we have them all. Let's see if this works. Yep. So we're able to move around slot 1, but we can't move any others yet. We can only switch positions with slot 1. So, but we see that that's working, which is really awesome. So what we're going to need to do now, this is where it kind of gets a little rough, just because we're going to have to copy and paste a lot of information here. And we're going to have to do that, what we just did, we're going to have to do that about 4 more times. So let's create another macro. Let's just jump into it. Let's do inventory slot 2 swapping. Create the 2 executable pins for in and out for input output. And next, this is where we can kind of copy and paste a good amount. So it's not going to be too rough. So let's just copy and paste everything we see here. Let's go into the inventory slot 2. So we're copying everything from the inventory slot 1 swapping. Just copy and paste that. Hook up the input here. And everything before the sequence, we can leave the same. It's only after the sequence that we have to change things. So the first thing we're going to have to change is the very first one at the top. Because now we're swapping slot 2, so this information is not useful. At least we need to add more to it. So first we're going to delete the slot 1 drag setting there where we're setting it to false. And we're basically going to have to do what we did for the other sections where we had to switch the slot name with the slot item temp name and switch them around. So we're going to have to do that for slot 1. So let's create, let's get the HUD reference. And we're going to get slot 1 item name. Oh, I'm sorry, no, we're going to set slot 1. And we're going to set that to item 2 name temp. And then same idea. We're going to get the HUD reference. We're going to set slot 2. And we're going to set that with the slot 1 item name temp. Drag that out. Connect them together. And now we have to basically replace we have to update the slot item name and the slot temp name. So we're going to set slot 1 temp. We get the HUD, get slot 1 item name, Click that up. There we go. And then same thing for slot 2. So set slot 2 item name temp. Get the HUD. Get slot 2. And then put this into the output. So let's grab our output. And now what we can do for the slot 2, we can remove all this, because we're basically, if we swap slot 2 with what's ever in slot 2, it should stay the same. So we're going to get our HUD reference and just set the slot 2 drag to false. Oops. And we can plug that into the output. Nope, missed it. There we go. And now we just kind of have to replace where it says slot 1 item name. We just got to swap that out with slot 2 item name. So we're going to set slot 2 item name. And then we're going to be swapping it with slot 2 item name temp. Now we can get rid of the slot 1 here. Do slot 2. Whoops. Get the HUD. Get slot 2. Plug that up. Plug these back in and put this to the output. And then we gotta do it again. So we're gonna be setting slot 2. And setting it to the slot 4 temp name. And then we're gonna get slot 2's temp name. Plug that up. Connect them back. Clean it up a little bit. Now we gotta remove this, and we can just copy and paste that. Make our lives easier there, and leave that alone, and then plug it up. Then we gotta do it one more time for slot 5. So that, do slot 2. So set slot 2. Connect that back up. Delete slot 1 item name temp, make it slot 2 item name temp. You can delete this entirely, copy and paste that. Connect that back up. Put this back into output. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's all connected. Let's compile, let's hit save. Let's go back to check for inventory swapping. Let's plug in inventory slot 2 swapping here for the check for slot 2 drag. And let's connect that to the output here. Now we can compile, save again. And now we should be able to basically swap out slot 2. So let's grab. So now we should be able to go back and forth here, which we are. And we could add others here. So we can't do 3 or 4 yet, so we can only do the first 2. So again, this is the most tedious section, I would say, of this tutorial, but we gotta keep on chugging along so we can get this over with, so we can move on. So we're gonna have to create a new macro. We'll call it inventory slot 3 swapping. Add our 2 executable pins here for in and out of input output. Move our output. Doesn't need to be there. Let's go back. Let's go into slot 2. Copy and paste all of that. Go back into slot 3 swapping. Move it into place. Hook the input to the first branch. And then we're going to leave the top one alone, except now we need to switch out for slot 3. So for slot 2 item name temp, we're going to do slot 3 item name temp. And then we're going to change this from slot 2 to slot 3. We can leave that alone. And we could just find the slot 3 one temp here. Now let's get our output. Let's put it over here. Hook this together. And now we need to delete this. Let's go into inventory slot 1. Let's just copy and paste the section for slot 2 here. Go back into slot 3 macro. Paste it. Connect it to the true. And now we need to change it from slot 1 item name to slot 3 item name. So let's do slot 3. Oops. Get slot 3 item name. Oops, no, we got set slot 3. Plug that up. Connect slot 2 item name temp. Clean that up. And then instead of this being the slot 1 item name temp, we do slot 3 item name temp. Plug that up. And then we can just copy paste the slot 3 section here. Paste it. Connect it. Put it to the output. And now for the slot 3, this is where we gotta basically take this all out, get our HUD reference, and do set slot 3 drag to false. And plug that up to the output. And now we gotta change this from slot 2 to slot 3. So if it says setting slot 2, we're going to be setting slot 3. And then we're going to, instead of doing slot 2 name temp, we're going to do slot 3 name temp. Make sure those plugged up. Then we can take out the slot 2 section here. Copy the slot 3 section, plug it up, and then put it to the output. And then same thing goes for the 5. So let me first delete the slot 2 temp here. Let's just copy and paste that, just so we know it's hooked up. Now we gotta delete the slot 2 item name temp, do slot 3 item name temp. And then delete this set. We're going to do set slot 3. Plug that up. Plug that up as well. Connect it. Throw that into the output. And then we're good in that. So compile. Go back to our check for inventory swapping. Add the inventory slot 3 swapping here. Compile, save, and then we can test just to make sure. So let's get 3 items. Now we should be able to swap all of them here. So we're able to swap all 3 around, so that's good. So we just gotta do this 2 more times. So let me just get a breather here. Alright, let's make another macro. inventory slot 4 swapping. Let's go back into our inventory slot 3 here. Just copy all that. Let's make our executable pins for the input-output, in and out executable pins. Let's paste. Let's get everything lined up. Let's throw our output over here. And now we have to go start from the top. So if it's, instead of it saying slot 3 item name temp, we'll do slot 4 item name temp. Instead of setting slot 3, we're going to set slot 4. We're going to leave the slot 1 name temp alone, but we're going to take this out. Let's go all the way down to the 4th section here, where we set the slot 4 item name to the slot 4 item name temp for the 4th slot. Plug that up. Put that into the output. Now we're going to have to set slot 4 here. So set slot 4. Plug those both up. Oops. And then instead of slot 3 item name temp, we're going to do slot 4 item name temp. Plug those up. We can reorganize here. And then we can delete the slot 3 section here, replace it with the slot 4 section here. Plug it up. Leave this alone for slot 2 here, and then plug it into the output. Then for slot 3, we have to delete that. Let's go into slot 2 and copy the section for the slot 3 here. Let's go back to slot 4. Let's paste. Well, we won't connect it right away. We'll delete the slot 2 here. We're going to set slot 4. Plug everything up. Connect these. Instead of slot 2 item name temp, we'll do slot 4 item name temp. And then after that, we're going to delete the slot 2 section here, replace it with the slot 4 section here. Connect those up, and then connect that to the output. And then for this section, since we're doing slot 4, we can delete that, get our HUD reference, and then just set drag for slot 4, set it to false. Plug that up, put that into the output here. And then last but not least, for the slot 5, so get that out of the way, we're going to set slot 4, plug that up, plug up the temp here, connect it back up here, delete slot 3 item name temp, or do slot 4 item name temp. Remove this section for the slot 3 name temp. Let's copy the slot 4 name temp. Put it into place. Connect them back up. Then put it into the output. Oh, didn't connect. Let's try again. Got it. So let's compile. Let's go back to check for inventory swapping. Put in that new macro for slot 4 swapping. Then plug it up to the output. Compile, save. Now we're gonna pretty much test it out again. So we can pick up 4 items now. So we should be able to swap them around however we want now for the first 4 items. So now we have to just do it one last time here for the 5th slot. So let's just do it. Let's go make a new macro. Inventory slot 5 swapping. That's what we're going to call it. Create the 2 executional pins. Name them in and out for input output. Let's go to inventory slot 4. Copy the whole thing. Go into slot 5. We'll move the outputs out of the way for right now. Hit paste. Connect those here. We can put our output over here. Let's go ahead and get rid of the 5th slot here. And get rid of that up there. We're going to get the HUD reference. We're going to set slot 5. Drag to false. Plug that to the output. And now for the top one, for slot 1, we're going to set it to slot 5 temp. Plug that up. Then we're not setting slot 4 here, we're going to be setting slot 5. So make sure those are plugged up. And then we can remove this section for the slot 4 temp, and we can just find where we did the slot 5 temp and just paste it into this new macro. Plug that up to the output. Now we got to do the same here. So we're not setting slot 4, we're setting slot 5. Plug everything up. Now we're not using the slot 4 name temp, we'll be using the slot 5 name temp. And we're not doing the slot 4 temp here, we're going to be doing the slot 5. Let's plug that into the output. Oops. Let's get it to connect. And then here, we're not setting slot 4, we're setting slot 5. So make sure those are hooked in. We're not using the slot 4 temp, we're using the slot 5 temp. We're not doing the slot 4 here, we're doing the slot 5. Plug everything up, put that to the output. And now for the slot 4, we need to go to slot 3. Let's copy and paste the section for slot 4 here and go back into slot 5. Paste that up. And let's update the names here. So we're not doing slot 3, we're doing slot 5. And not slot 3 name temp, we're doing slot 5 name temp. And we're not doing the slot 3 section here, we're doing the slot 5 section. Plug everything back up. Plug it to the output. Compile that. Go back to the check for inventory swapping macro. Put in our inventory slot 5 swapping macro here at the end. Plug that up to the output. Compile again. And save. And now we should be done with the ability to swap the inventory item within the actual inventory itself. So we should be able to swap any item with any item that we want. And we got that working. So that's going to be it for this tutorial, guys. I'll see you next time. Hey guys, thanks for watching. I definitely appreciate it. So if you liked what you saw, then definitely like this video, share the video, comment, let me know what you think, and if you have any problems. If you haven't already, also subscribe to Devin Level Design. You can do that by either clicking on me or clicking on the subscribe button. And if you want to see more videos like this, you can click on one of the 2 videos on the right. It'll give you more information on more Unreal Engine 4 blueprint tutorials as well as blueprint examples. So again, thanks for watching, guys. Bye.